Hi there, my name is Philip Ideson. I want to welcome you to the Art of Procurement podcast, the podcast that helps you, a forward-thinking procurement professional, position yourself and your team to proactively take advantage of the revolution that's taking place in procurement today. By interviewing industry trailblazers and sharing insights from our own experiences, my team and I pull back the curtain and shine a light on the strategies, tactics, and tools that procurement teams are using to elevate their impact. And welcome to this week's Art of Procurement, where I welcome my first guest of the new year, Stephane Morel. Stephane is a global process owner within Strategic Procurement at Novartis, with responsibility for advancing, aligning, alleviating, accelerating, and automating strategic procurement processes. Stephane has been an active LinkedIn user over the past few years and is always sharing his experience and wisdom with the procurement community. What I wasn't aware of until our conversation is how similar our backgrounds are. We dig into that into the show, and it was really a thrill to spend time getting to know Stephane doing that. Now, in our conversation, we dug deep into category management. Is category management fit for purpose? What are the strengths of category management, and what should we rethink? Why is technology only just beginning to support category management, and what could the future of category management look like? Well, I hope when you listen to the conversation you enjoy it as much as I did. I'll start, and we'll kick things off, as I always do, by asking Stephane, did you find procurement, or did procurement find you?
Clearly, Philip, I didn't get into procurement by chance. At university, I was lucky to listen a great presentation from a buyer. So I decided to investigate a bit more. And eventually, I decided to finish my studies with a 1-year full-time master in procurement. My first job, obviously, was in procurement 25 years ago. And I'm still in love with this function. That's all.
So you're one of the 1% that actually chose the function.
Yes, sir.
What was it about? Or what? Take me back those kind of 25 years. What were they teaching about procurement?
Look, it was there was only one master at that time in France, and they were already talking about spend analysis, if I remember well, how to make good biddings. So we were not talking at that time about the 7-step strategic sourcing process of Kearney,
Right.
but we were teach about that. Somehow something similar to category management, but market analysis, supplier analysis. At that time, we were also having the Kraljic matrix. 25 years ago, the Kraljic matrix was there. And how to negotiate, cost breakdown, etc. So really fully focused on procurement. So basically, when I was starting my job, I was just a very, very young boy, but I was coming with quite some procurement knowledge versus my peers, which were maybe, I don't know, 10 years of procurement experience or more than that. So that created for me a little bit of competitive advantage.
It's interesting because I think we both share a shared experience at the beginning of our careers in the automotive business. And you were with Valeo and Faurecia, which was competitors to the company that I was with, a company called Vista, doing lots of indirect and also, what was it like? We did a lot of interiors and plastics and things like that.
Oh, yes.
So, I look back and think that's such a good grounding for my career, because some of those principles that then maybe I didn't think were that advanced turned out to be fairly advanced around category management, because that was really starting around that kind of early 2000s in the automotive business.
Yeah.
That we're still kind of working on today. Do you find that was a really good grounding for you in your career?
It was an amazing school, and an amazing school in terms of every procurement the techniques, honestly, especially how you integrate the supplier, no, in terms of development, designing new product, launching new product, and then obviously productivity management.
Yeah.
But not only that, there was also a lot of quality management and obviously supply management. So for me, this industry has something fantastic. I think it's one of the most integrated sector with the suppliers,
Yeah.
but at the same time, one of the most competitive and aggressive in
Yeah.
terms of relationship. And it works well. We have seen recently the issues, no? But that's very strange to have such level of integration with so aggressive relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's so well. I'm speaking from a place where it's been a long time since I've been in the industry, but at the time there was so little trust between suppliers, and yet so much reliance on the suppliers.
I spent 4 years in a just-in-time production plant, and that's a quite incredible experience. Yeah, we had literally 90 minutes to produce and deliver the part directly into the production plant of SEAT.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you work under pressure, and our suppliers were delivering for the most important one 3 times per day.
Yeah, and one of the things
So
I was always taught, you never shut down your client's manufacturing facility.
never, never,
that's
ever,
that's an
neither on weekends.
expensive that's an expensive proposition. Now, fast forward a few years, and you are now with Novartis. And I just wonder if you could share a little bit about what your role is, just for context, for the rest of the conversation at Novartis.
Yes, Philip. So already 15 years now at Novartis. So that's my fifth role. Now I'm a global process owner for strategic procurement. So here I include demand, category, and supplier management.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about risk sustainability and insight management. So we have been revising our existing process maps, and it's all about the 4 A's: aligning, accelerating, alleviating, and automating. So that's what we try to do. And
Mm-hmm.
this revision of our procurement processes is part of an overall multi-year huge digital transformation program at the company. We are rethinking more than 700 core processes across all functions.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of this exercise over the last 18 months, in addition, I've been really lucky, Philip, to lead a project of digitization of category management. So a very nice experience right now.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to digging into that, because category management is one of those last frontiers for digitization, I feel, for a lot of organizations. I had a question that, and just something you said there kind of spurred this for me, because I'm thinking right now we're recording this towards the end of December, and the podcast will be published in January. Between then and now, I'll have published some predictions for 2023, and I'm just going through the process of thinking about them. One of the things that I'm pretty sure on is that procurement is turning into a risk function, not necessarily an expense management function. Expense management is a risk factor, but we're taking a lot more role in the oversight of risk management in our company. And I wonder if that's something that you see on the ground as well.
Uh, Look, normally right now, risk and sustainability are the buzz, no?
Yeah.
Much more, by the way, than innovation. Innovation was the buzz maybe
Right.
just before COVID-19,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's completely different. At Novartis right now, we are highly focused on sustainability, somehow on risk management, but maybe I would say a little bit less than many other companies and
Interesting.
industries.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we still have big stocks due to our production process
Yeah.
and all the steps we have. So we have stocks, and we are suffering. We are making risk management, but maybe so not critical versus other sectors.
Yeah. I wonder.
Sustainability for us right now is the big priority. Ensuring supply is also, but we manage it so far.
Yeah.
So far.
Do you think that sustainability could be a risk? You could look at sustainability through a risk lens, and that's why it's getting the focus. Or does it deserve its very own pillar, so to speak?
It's a complete, I think it's a complete change of mindset first,
Mm-hmm.
for the company, for the procurement organization, for so many suppliers, and then it will have dramatical impacts in terms of supplier panel, in terms of supply chain, ways of working, why not business models.
Yeah.
So we can call it a risk, but I think it deserves to be managed separately.
So let's talk category management. And there's a lot being said about category management and its effectiveness. I think over the last couple of years, I've seen that more than probably the few years preceding it. What would you say is procurement's current attitude towards category management?
Look, I'm with you. I think category management was a top priority between the 90s of the last century
Mhm.
up to 2019. But to be honest, in the last couple of years, I've seen few things. The first one is that Catman has been more and more criticized, and you can see that in the social networks. The second point, I think it's a personal opinion here, but Catman has been somehow disappearing from the white papers
Mhm.
of many consulting firms. I'm not sure about it, but that's my analysis. And the third thing is I see more focus now on SRM rather than Catman.
Interesting. Why would you think that, or why? What do you have a philosophy um, on why you're observing these things?
Hmm. Let's see. I've said Catman is criticized, and I think basically, Philip, it's because Catman has been wrongly applied.
Yeah.
Many category managers have been doing a very light Catman approach. If we are a little bit more technical, you and me, basically, they have been doing a work similar to the first three steps
Hmm.
of the typical seven steps of strategic sourcing process from Kearney or whatever. So it's not enough. We say the tool is not working, but really, did we apply it well? That's the first point. I also think, Philip, we failed to really engage the business
Yeah.
in this methodology. So too often we have created strategies in isolation. And obviously, in such a case, you've got an immediate lack of interest from the business, or even they simply push back. When I talk about the white papers, and I say that Catman has been somehow disappearing from the white papers, look, right now, white papers are highly connected to the tech buzz,
Hmm.
and you do not have so many eCatman tool. So my opinion is that we do not have critical mass to make eCatman visible in the white papers for now. And finally, related to the SRM, I can understand that some people can have issues with the Catman in our Ultravuca world. Those people really wonder why we should spend so many hours on creating a strategy that we will have to course correct in just a few months due to the new environment. So basically, maybe they say, look, I prefer to focus on SRM now rather than Catman. I don't know, Philip, but it's more a guess than than
Yeah.
something sure I've got.
I would say that one of the the biggest challenges. Well, there's a couple of things. One, it's really interesting. Actually, I back up a little bit. It's interesting. You said about a lot of category management has been the category management light, and I see that it's really just what you would consider the due diligence or opportunity assessment for a sourcing project, as opposed to it's like a one time. Okay, we've got all these disparate contracts. Let's do a one time strategy to get us to an opportunity assessment, and then we're kind of done and moving on. As opposed to, I really look at category management when it's successful as a flywheel. That's ultimately
Yep.
driving continuous improvement, um, and also that engaging in the business. So, how many times have we seen and still see where you do it in isolation and the business is like, well, that's nice, but I don't need this, and you've just spent 6 months pulling together a wonderful strategy that truly isn't aligned with the needs of the business, and that's such a big miss because I think maybe sometimes we feel like we've got to prove ourselves by going and demonstrating, look at all these things that I know, and things you should do differently. And we fear that when we have a first conversation, that if we don't have that, then people aren't going to want to talk to us. Stakeholders aren't going to want to talk to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on I'm with you on that one.
And I'm probably guilty of that earlier in my career too, especially the days when you would have 100-page decks that you have to fill them all in. I don't know if you remember, all of those where you're basically doing every single management model that's out there just to demonstrate in your 100 slides,
Oh, good.
every which way.
Good old times.
Yeah. Do you often think there's a misunderstanding within the business of what category management really is?
Look, for sure, Philip, I would say there is also a misunderstanding within procurement.
Yeah.
Um, so we've got within procurement, different definition of Catman. And even worse, we do not have a unified definition of what category strategy means. So I think it's important to align first the procurement organization and then to convey this message to the business, not to our stakeholders. And once we've got this definition, to have the discipline to stick to it. And it's not easy for sure, but right now I see a big gap generally over there. So for me, Philip, right now I've got a dilemma, no, with or without tech solution. By the way, I see one option. Let's say that we could continue to expect Catman for many categories, subcategories, and that means we are going to combine full and light Catman. So they also, let's flex the Catman approach. So flexing Catman approach for me means basically that we will have many reasons to do the light version and to skip the full Catman. So that's option one. The second option is then could we focus only on few key, the highly impactful categories? And in this case, we do grateful Catman. And it's where I've got my dilemma today. Maybe option one, it's what we have been doing, by the way. And if we could continue to do that, it would still lead to a bad image of Catman and also limited outcomes. So right now, I would rather go for option two. I think it's a pity to reduce the scope of Catman. But look, you do it in few categories, you show the real impact of the methodology because it's well applied. And then once again, you try to expand. So I'm not sure about it, but that's how I see it.
I'm definitely in the two camp, the option two camp, focusing on the few key, highly impactful categories and do a really great job. I mean, I believe that's the future of procurement, to be honest with you, especially as you get more automation and, the ability to devolve a lot of buying responsibilities, that's tech enabled back into the stakeholders. I honestly see that the future of procurement is a smaller profession than it is today from a headcount perspective, but that's working on a lot more higher impact, driving better business outcomes on the things that really matter. And maybe that means across the profession, because procurement then can have an even better ROI. There are more businesses that invest in it, so it means that there's more jobs across the profession, just less jobs in each company. But honestly, that's where I don't know how long it's going to take to get there, but that's
exactly on paper. On paper, I'm with you. I see it. On reality, it can be hard because it's super hard to get rid of the compliance, the transactional, and the tactical. So they say that technology is going to help us. I've got no doubt on that, but it's not an easy journey.
No, it's. I mean, it's partially what I worry about, and this was probably one of the reasons for even starting the podcast. I don't know 7-8 years ago was that we won't make the change as a profession. The change will be made to us. And so I think that's the hardest thing is like, how do we embrace that unknown and try and figure out the ways that we can use this technology to take us in that direction, as opposed to looking at that as being, this is something I should fear because my job's going to be at risk, which is a natural reaction.
Yeah, and I'm with you there, Philip. I think really now procurement is a function for very courageous people, courageous and curious people. Courageous and curious to test, to pilot new things, not to challenge the statu quo of the stakeholders world, but to really challenge our own status quo. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
So the profile of the people we need in this function has been changing already, I think, a lot. And we see that now we've got fantastic talents. But yes, we need to be even more courageous, even more curious to break with, let's say, traditional options. I won't talk about dinosaurs, but traditional options.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And you mentioned a couple of times around digitization of the category management process. I said right at the beginning, it seems to be the last area of the procurement process that's focused on by a lot of businesses from a digitization perspective. I think somewhat because there isn't necessarily a ton of options out there. How do you kind of size up the opportunity to digitally transform or bring digital capabilities for category management?
Look, it's quite simple now in the market. No, you just have one, and I would be glad to say even two solutions. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a ultra niche segment for now. You also have, as you've said, a very limited number of companies using eCatman and willing to use it. So that's why I've said I've been really lucky to be able to lead this project at Novartis. Maybe the reason why it's so difficult, and I'm talking about Catman like SRM,
Mm-hmm.
those two methodologies requires a huge quantity of connected data. So any eCatman tool must be connected to many other tools. You like spend analysis, market intelligence, contract database, even worse, supplier passports, supplier performance scores. So it's not an easy business.
Yeah.
It's a big investment, and at the end, just to create a strategy and a pipeline of
Right.
initiatives. So the business case is not easy, and there is a lot of work. But honestly, can we continue to have Catman on PowerPoints
Right.
stored in a SharePoint and
I'm shaking
and
my head.
staying in the SharePoint for
Yep.
forever?
Talking about things not changing in the, since the 22 years ago or so that we were working in automotive, putting together those category strategies in PowerPoint. Um, I wonder if, because you've experienced e-category management or the digitization of category management, if you could kind of paint the picture of what a digitally enabled category management process could look like.
This one, yes, I can answer you, Philip. So at Novartis, we talk about, by the way, category workbench.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we do this category workbench by using a Catman tech solution. So in our case, it's Sirtuo.
Yep.
And for that, we've got a clear ambition. The first thing is to create a single place where the category manager can connect or can enter, and he or she will do her job much more efficiently. Then it's to generate a space where we can really collaborate with the business.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about the e-sourcing tools. The e-sourcing tools are not so business collaborative, and it works. But for Catman, I really think there is no choice. It will not work if it is only a procurement tool.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if we enter more into the details, technically speaking, um, for me, great eCatman would mean first spend data automation. So
Yep.
we have been already working on that. Last week, we also went live with the connection Sirtuo Ariba sourcing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the first time a company does that. So just to give you an idea, is that when you create a strategic saving initiative in Sirtuo, it will automatically create the project in Ariba sourcing.
Okay.
So all that is linked. Now
Mm-hmm.
strategy is also linked now to our operations. Next year, hopefully, we can connect Sirtuo to Ariba contracting. This would be great. And what is also very important in all our cohorts, we have been using the integrated market intelligence. And in this field, honestly, we expect much more in terms of
Yeah.
immediate and more predictive market analysis. What else? I've got a long list. We would love to receive more accurate supplier dossiers. Uh, we would love to be able to connect to our supplier performance scores, as I have mentioned before. Fantastic thing. Imagine all the important, the urgent changes, updates, or impacts on a market or suppliers could just pop up automatically. No, you receive on a daily basis whatsoever
Yeah.
this pop up, so you can
Yep.
see if for you it's important or not. Um, and obviously, much better automatic recommendations of strategic options based on AI.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I'm talking about AI, machine learning, whatsoever, is that the whole tech platform will really leverage the collective knowledge of all the companies, all the category strategies
Yeah.
they have in the tool. So we could benefit from all this knowledge now. That would be absolutely fantastic. And I've got a final wish, and this one is a big one. I would love to have the platform connected to our internal forecasting data.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, Philippe, I think at Novartis, it's not a tech solution issue, but at Novartis, we are not yet there. We will have to wait quite a lot. But imagine you've got your category of, I don't know, car fleet. And I connect, and I've got my evolution of number of cars. No, I've got clinical studies, and I've got my number of clinical studies for the future, congress and events whatsoever. All that is connected.
Yeah, I
This one
have
could be really cool.
the one that I think that I love the idea of is the automatic recommendation of different options based on AI. So getting all that data, collecting it all, and we've just had a glimpse in the last 2 weeks, into this Chat GPT, and so I think it's not necessarily brand new technology, but it's with an accessible wrapper, and you can start to think about, what if as that gets smarter, and you can start to provide all the information. It's like it's like a consultant, in a browser,
Yeah,
almost. And while again we may be a while away from that, you can definitely see a future where that's possible. And we talk about differentiated decision making. And how can you synthesize all these different insights in a way that helps you drive a different decision than would ordinarily have been driven if you didn't have access and hadn't synthesized all these different insights.
yeah.
One of the things I want to back up a little bit, you said about using integrated market intelligence. Are you doing that at all now, or is that more on the wish list?
No, no. Right now, so right now in the tool, we've got more than 100 category strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get there, the Cirtio platform were automatically connected to a market intelligence provider. So um, it's quite expensive still, but basically, uh, any category manager were having access to 25 questions. So basically, it was in the tool. You just choose your 25 question. It's just a click.
Mm-hmm.
You click on the button. You can even fine tune the question if you want. And in this case, so far it was in 2 or 5 days, you are directly receiving the answer from the market intelligence company into the system. What will come soon is that you will click and you will get this information in just a couple of minutes. What will even come soon is that the system will pre-populate the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine your Kraljic matrix or supplier preferencing matrix. You've got maybe 10 questions. 6 of those questions are market intelligence related. So you will even not ask for those questions. The system will pre-populate the answer to those questions. If you like it, you keep it. If you don't like it, you change the statement.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, you get your positioning in the Kraljic matrix or in the supplier preferencing matrix. This is what has to come in market intelligence. We are not yet there, but it's going to come. But for me, once again, market intelligence right now, they are very good at tell you what has been happening in the last year, 6 months, in the last 3 months, what is happening today in the next 3 months, but it's not predictive enough. So I think those companies will still have to work on that. But it's coming very, very fast.
Yeah, and that's where your subject matter expert as a category manager comes in, isn't it? Where you're understanding the nuance of the current situation of your business and what the goals are. You're understanding the context, the environment in which you're operating, and what's possible and what may not be possible from a cultural perspective. And then you're getting all these insights and this data, and you're connecting that with your experience in the category. So that doesn't necessarily go away. You're just your job is being made faster
Yeah.
and easier in some regards, easier in the fact that it's the insights are delivered to you rather than you having to find them.
And I've got endless debate, Philip, on that one. So
Mhm.
we say that the category manager should really find the key insights
Mhm.
and make the strategy based on those insights. In the reality, how many category managers are really creating those insights?
Yeah.
I think many category managers today are gathering the information, a lot of information, but it's so hard to get the key insights and base your strategy on those insights. So I think today it's really hard. It's not well done. So there is another option to say, look, as it's not done really well, maybe we don't need it. So I can put my AI and I just do it for you quickly because anyway, the insights are not really happening today.
Mhm.
So why do I need them? So I can go very fast and you can have a category strategy in few minutes.
So,
So look,
s-
big debates there, no?
yeah. So here's a philosophical question then, which may not have a right answer. Should, but I've got an opinion as usual. Um, should a the person of the team that's facing off with the business from a category strategy perspective be an expert in that category, or should they be somebody who is a relational kind of manager who knows how to synthesize all these insights and data that they have at their disposal, and they're almost like architecting using all these different tools?
I think, Philip, we will be on the same page. In my 25 years, I've been managing myself very different categories,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not expert at all.
Yeah.
And I've been guiding and coaching right now more than 100 category strategies at Novartis, no? Going from R&D to marketing, corporate spend. And I was having no clue in some categories because I cannot know everything.
Yeah.
But basically, it's just about connecting the dots, no? What are your top challenges from a category point of view? What are the critical business priorities, challenges, or needs, even requirements? And when you just look at that, plus a little bit of insights from suppliers, supplier market, you say, what is your bold vision? And then once you've got your bold vision, you can have your detailed strategic objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I was able to say, look, I think all that makes sense. Or I was able to challenge a little bit, not being an expert.
Yeah, and
So,
and I, as you suggest, I agree with that. Um, that you need to be able to access the insights and the intelligence you need when you need them, but you don't necessarily, being the face to the stakeholder, need to have that level of insight yourself.
correct.
All right. Well, this is a fascinating conversation. I want to leave folks today who with some action, with some thinking around actions as well for everything that's going on in the world right now. We've got a challenging economy. We've got all the risks, supply chain risks we touched on earlier. We've got these aggressive ESG targets. We've got this automation, digitization, so many things going on around our profession. How can you make sense of that all? Or what recommendations for the procurement professionals that you're coaching or mentoring do you give them to either know where to focus or stay on top of all this different change that's happening in our profession?
Mm. This one is a complicated one. So you're right. We've got so many priorities, no, to consider, and at the same time, we are navigating through the perfect storm. I think right now it's super overwhelming and stressful, and with all the communication we see on procurement, no, I think we are mixing everything now.
Mm-hmm.
We have reached a point where we are making a big soup of so many things. So I would really go back to the drawing board and I would revise or adjust what I call our essentials. What sometimes we say we go back to the basics. So
Yeah.
not to say I go back to the basics, I call them the essentials. So I see 5 work streams. The first one is strategy. To make short, what is really our ambition? So how can procurement really help the business?
Yeah.
And what is our roadmap? so our procurement upskilling journey. The second work stream is our people. We can talk first about our procurement people. So we need to rethink the profiles we want, we need to retrain, and we need to retain. In the people work stream, you can talk also about business partnering with our stakeholders. You could also put SRM because we are talking to the people of our suppliers.
Yeah.
The third work stream is pipeline. Obviously, we need to have our list of projects or initiatives. But here, for me, when I'm talking about pipeline, is look, what are our key tools? By tools, is it Catman? Is it strategic sourcing process? Is it crowdsourcing? Whatever you want to put there, TCO analysis, whatever. We've got programs. And that's why I've said risk or sustainability or more programs.
Right.
And then we've got our procurement levers. So the typical procurement levers, sourcing management, process management, demand management, value management. We need to split those three things and not to mix everything. So that's the pipeline. Then obviously the operating model. What is our guiding principles in terms of function? Before we were calling that the procurement policy. So now
Mhm.
those are guiding principles, and how we have to adapt our org chart to those first three work streams. And finally, there is the digital. And be careful when I'm talking about digital. I talk about process, data, and digitization in this order,
Yeah.
because sometimes we are also mixing. So to be successful, Philip, I think we need clarity on those different building blocks. We need to manage them despite our chaotic environment,
Mhm.
despite the constant changes of priorities we have in the day-to-day operations. I don't know if I'm really
How,
answering the
in fact,
question, but it's how I
I
see
want to
it.
just touch on something which was nuanced, but I think is important. When you talked about operating model, you said guiding principles and not process. I think that's really important when it's a really important message to stakeholders and to the business that you're not here to tell them how to do their job. You're here to help them. And I think that the words that we use make a big difference into how we're perceived.
Yep.
Now, the other question I had was how important is consistency in the way that we are engaging with the stakeholders? So I think about, most of the organizations that I've been in where you've had pockets of or maybe categories where you've had a lot of success and you've had other categories where there hasn't been a lot of success. It's not necessarily been down to the process that you have or the technology. It's been down to the individuals and the individual's ability to do it, which is not really very scalable because everybody's different. How do you think about bringing consistency to process, because that was first in kind of your digital journey, so that you're setting the right stage for anyone to be successful and it's not reliant on the skill or otherwise of one person versus another person?
Two things, Philip. I think we have been talking about the process or the tools.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, I've seen procurement organization who wants to do Catman because you cannot do in procurement if you don't do Catman. But those organizations are absolutely not ready for Catman. So basically, they train everybody to Catman, and it's far too early. So at the end, nothing is happening, and even people are bothered because they have been spending time to learn the methodology, and the following day they tell those people to do something completely
Yeah.
different. So we've got the process piece. Then what was interesting in your comment was the stakeholder management or business partnering. And here I need to come back to, I think it was 2016 at Novartis. I was super lucky to drive for the first time ever at Novartis a worldwide stakeholder mapping.
Mm-hmm.
So we take all our procurement people. At that time, we were nearly 1,000. We say, look, we've got, if I remember well, 250 procurement business partners, and we are going to map to those 250 guys stakeholders.
Yeah.
And we mapped at the end 1,200 stakeholders for Novartis worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you the first very difficult exercise was to define and to select our stakeholders. There is a big confusion between we've got hundreds of internal customers. We cannot manage hundreds of internal customers. So, who are the very few stakeholders we are going to manage? So, we
Yeah.
need to select them carefully. So, basically, we said, look, a procurement business partner can be a category manager, can be a country procurement manager, can manage up to 3 or 4 stakeholders, not more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we created then a business partnering framework and methodology. And we've seen the results of that because we were measuring at that time the procurement satisfaction rate, no? And the rate was progressing. And our procurement initiatives were easier to drive. So I've seen that in 2015, 2016. So
Yeah.
you're right. We need to have the right process or tools, choose the right one, but then create and build the relation with the right people. But very few companies are spending really time on this notion of business partnering.
Right.
They say to their buyers, "Hey, let's be trusted partners, trusted advisor,
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. Select them and go there." And they just abandon, no, the associate, the procurement guys on this journey. It's complicated. So you need to guide them and you need to show that it's important. And I think the return on investment is really good on that.
What makes for a stakeholder to manage then? Um, are there any characteristics that you would look for that would determine, that's somebody who we want to proactively support versus that's somebody who we're going to be responsive to when they have a need?
I would have to come back to to the definition. For us, the stakeholder was an internal customer with a high rate of influence
Mm-hmm.
or was able to make the right decisions within the company.
Yeah.
Then we can have many internal customers who are buying many things. They can help you or they can block you, but basically they are not really they do not have a lot of influence. No, they
Yeah.
are making decision on a small scope. So let's go for those stakeholders. And the stakeholders are not always the top bosses. No, obviously they are, but you also have some people in the organization who are not top managers, but at the end they've got a lot of influence
Mm-hmm.
on the bosses.
Yeah.
So you also need those guys as a stakeholder. And look, we created a 5-step methodology for business partnering. And at the beginning, the most important was build the relationship.
Yeah.
And building the relationship takes a lot of time because those people don't have time, we don't have time, and we need the time just to create the relationship. Then we defined our common value proposition. It's so simple. Why are we going to work together?
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got that clear, then you can start to negotiate a list of initiatives and projects.
Yeah.
So my problem, Philip, is that we say to our procurement guys, let's go, be trusted advisor, come back with the agreed list of initiatives for next year.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, how can we go to a stakeholder and say, look, let's sit down, you and me, we are going to negotiate the fantastic project for next year.
Yeah. Make
It's
sure it's all big.
incredible to treat a stakeholder like that, no?
Yeah. I don't want you small ones, but I want you big ones.
So,
No, interesting. So, I know we're about running out of time today, so I have one last question. And we have a lot of people who listen to the podcast who are getting into procurement for the first time, and they're trying to learn more about the profession. You've obviously got such a wealth and depth of experience in procurement. I wonder if there's any things that you would recommend to somebody who's coming new into the profession, as how to kind of get themselves grounded around ultimately what the art of the possible is for them.
hmm. uh, wow. So look, the first thing I see, I would really ask myself, uh, am I really in? Am I really ready for this profession?
Mm-hmm.
Am I ready to invest my energy there? Procurement is not an easy job. It's a fascinating function, but we need now more than ever people who, as at the beginning, not forever, but who really want to be in. Then, Philip, it's just about learning and sharing about the future of procurement. We've got so many topics. So a young person can focus on the theme he or she prefers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many options. Do you want to focus more on sustainability, on productivity, on risk, on whatever you want, on quality, on supply chain? So maybe you can start learning and sharing about one or two themes you like. And look, what I would say also is that obviously when you are young, you are maybe not so high in the organization, obviously. Just start to make a difference.
Yeah.
So what I can do is just to try a new thing, and then a new one, or just try to solve a problem, an existing procurement problem, and then another problem. So like that, I can grow, I can do a better job, maybe a better job. If it's with an internal customer, it's perfect. If it's with my colleagues, also good. It's with my supplier, perfect. I think this ball, now we've got a snowball effect. It will just become unstoppable. It's how I see it. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
Philip, if I'm answering well, but
Yeah, I
I
think
see it like that.
you said before about being curious, and um, for me, it's about just to build on what you said, is trying. Don't be afraid to try new things. I
Yeah.
think that as a profession, sometimes a lot of us, you and I included, have been in this profession for a long time, and so you sometimes the diversity of thought is limited to the things that we've seen and done, and not necessarily having the experience on the outside. So if you're somebody who's coming in with experience on the outside, I think that's a wonderful opportunity to make suggestions on how we can be smarter, different, just take a different approach. It's not like you're going to come in and tell everyone they're doing everything wrong on day one, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to drive improvement or suggest improvement based on your experience outside of procurement.
And Philip, my next post on LinkedIn next week, I think, will be on, are we serious about diversity?
Mm-hmm.
Diversity of people,
Yeah,
diversity of profiles, diversity of suppliers, diversity of stakeholders. We say it makes a lot of a big difference. We say that we should be serious about it, but at the end, no, how diverse
yeah,
are the procurement organizations, no, today?
yeah. No, it's true, and it's diversity of thought as much as anything
Yes.
for me. That I think that's one of the hardest things that we have to overcome.
Procurement people with expert from the business joining procurement,
Mhm.
all that is fantastic. Mixing the industries, no? We want always the category manager, expert in the category within the same industry. Wow,
Yeah,
fantastic. The guy will come and he will make a copy paste of his strategy from the previous company, even if it doesn't make sense to make the copy paste.
yeah.
He or she will do it. Wow, great.
Well, I mean, both of us went from basically automotive, which is very process driven, and if you don't follow the procurement process, you get fired environment, to pharmaceutical, which is was certainly when I joined, because I went to Pfizer from automotive, was the opposite. And it was, here I am, procurement, trying to stop my business stakeholders from spending their budgets, and so they're not going to get their budgets again next year. So they wanted nothing to do with me.
So we had the same shock, you
Yeah,
and me.
exactly. Like, okay, I got to think of a different approach here.
It was a big shock, yes.
Yeah. But then it was deliberate. I did that because I wanted to make sure I had diversity of industry experience. And for
Exactly.
everything that automotive is wonderful, the one thing it's not is, you have a very defined and specified way of doing things. And there's not a lot of nuance kind of that's left to interpret.
Correct.
Uh,
Fully in agreement.
Well, Stefan, I want to thank you so much for joining me. If anybody would like to connect with you, then I will include a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes for today's episode. I know you're really active on LinkedIn. So anybody can go to artofprocurement.com/podcast and find that. Or, of course, just look up Stefan directly in LinkedIn, and I'm sure you'll be happy to connect.
Fantastic.
All
And
right.
thank
Well,
you so much, Philip. Really appreciate this conversation.
thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you again soon. If this episode struck a chord with you, please do send it to somebody. We grow here at Art of Procurement through word of mouth, and that would be really appreciated. You can also support us by giving us a thumbs up, a star rating, or a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Since 2015, we've built the world's largest free resource for procurement professionals looking to elevate their impact. Our resources span podcasts like this, videos, blog posts, papers, and events. To join us on the inside and to ensure you never miss an episode, a webinar, event, or a post, please do subscribe to our weekly newsletter, This Week in Procurement. You can do that at artofprocurement.com/subscribe. That's artofprocurement.com/subscribe. Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.